This is an original story. Let's get into it. Across the river, across the rules, the world is full of barriers that keep people apart. Some are obvious and some not so much. There are physical barriers like mountains and oceans, but also social ones like language and culture. And sometimes the lines are blurred. Take the dividing line between the village of Kisumu and the village of It might look like any other border, but for those who live there, it's anything but. You see, the villagers on either side of the line don't just hate each other. They're sworn enemies. Decades ago, they were one community until a disagreement over land split them in two. Ever since then, it's been a bitter rivalry with both sides blaming the other for all their troubles. For the men, fishing has become a competition. They claim the river in the middle belongs to them, but neither side can prove it. This means tensions rise every time someone crosses the line to fish on the other side. Just recently, a man from Kisumu was caught stealing fish from Namira's side, and he paid dearly for it. As punishment, he was thrown into the river and left to swim across to the other side, but nobody expected him to make it. Everyone assumed he'd drown before reaching the shore, especially his wife. And Jerry, she stood on the bank watching him struggle through the water. Her heart went out to her husband, but she knew better than to help him. Not only would it put her husband in danger, but helping the enemy would make her a target herself. And this isn't an uncommon fear. Men, women, and children from Kisumu live in constant fear of their neighbors from the... It's become such a problem that the local government had to step in and impose a curfew. Nobody is allowed to cross the river after dark because of how dangerous it can be. Anyone caught breaking the rules faces heavy fines or even jail time. That is, if they're lucky. Most often the punishment is far less forgiving. Rumors spread quickly, and word got around that a man from Kisumu had drowned trying to escape Namira's wrath, and Jiri felt terrible, but she couldn't do anything about it. All she could do was hope that her husband had survived. Meanwhile, back on the other side, a young girl named Makina watched the same scene unfold. She saw the man struggling to stay afloat and knew he was in trouble. Without thinking twice, she jumped into the water and began swimming towards him. To everyone's surprise, she managed to reach him just in the nick of time and helped pull him out of the water. Although she saved his life, she knew she'd be in trouble for helping the enemy. Still, she couldn't bear the thought of the man's wife losing her husband, so she decided to hide him in the forest until he was well enough to return home. Of course, she didn't know that Ngiri was looking for her husband at that very moment. She'd spent hours searching for him without any luck, but she refused to give up. She knew the river's current was strong and her husband was no match for it. So she had only one option left. She needed to cross the river and search for him personally. However, she knew the risks involved and hesitated to take them. If she was caught, she would have to face the wrath of her entire village. But fear turned to determination when she realized her husband might be dead. Nothing was more important than finding him. So, with the sun setting over the horizon, Njeri did the unthinkable. She crossed the river and entered Namira village. She hid in the forest as darkness fell and started searching for her husband. She looked everywhere, but it was no use. He wasn't there. Just as she was about to give up, she heard voices coming from a small hut. She hid behind a tree and listened in. To her surprise, she heard her husband's voice. Relief washed over her, but she knew she couldn't enter the hut. She had to find another way to get to him. Meanwhile, inside the hut, the man she saved was sitting by the fire telling a story. His audience was none other than Makina's father. He told him everything that had happened, including how he tried to escape and nearly drowned. But what he didn't tell him was that he had been set up. You see, earlier that day, he'd gone to Namira to gather medicine for his sick child. But as soon as he crossed the river, he was surrounded by Namira's men. They accused him of spying and gave him two choices. Either he would pay a heavy fine or he would be thrown into the river. He chose the latter, hoping to swim across to the other side. But the current was too strong and he was exhausted. By the time he was found, he was already losing hope. His father-in-law listened patiently, and when he finished, he let out a sigh. He knew this rivalry had gone on for far too long, and something had to change. He wasn't going to let another innocent life be ruined by it. With that in mind, he made a decision. He told his guest that he would help him get back across the river, but he had a condition. He wanted to talk to the leaders of both villages and end this rivalry once and for all. His guest agreed without hesitation. As the night wore on, the two men devised a plan to bring their villages together. The next morning, they called the leaders of both communities to a meeting. At first, the atmosphere was tense, but the man from Kisumu surprised everyone. Instead of arguing, he proposed a solution. He suggested they hold a competition where the best fishermen from both sides would compete for bragging rights. The winner would receive a special prize, and the loser would have to admit defeat. Everyone thought it was a great idea and agreed to the plan. Soon, the whole village was buzzing with excitement. For the first time in decades, the people of Kisumu and Namira were putting aside their differences and working together. The day of the competition finally arrived, and both sides were eager to show off their skills. They lined up on the riverbank with their nets and rods ready to go. One by one, they cast their lines into the water and waited patiently for a bite. Meanwhile, Jure and Makana watched from a distance. They didn't know how this competition would turn out, but they were happy to see their people getting along. After hours of fishing, it was time to tally up the results. The team from Kisumu had caught more fish than their rivals, so they were declared the winners. Everyone cheered and celebrated, and even the men from Namira congratulated their opponents. The atmosphere was lighthearted and festive, and everyone enjoyed the celebration. As the sun began to set and Jerry and Makina approached the men from Kisumu, they wanted to apologize for any trouble they may have caused, but instead of anger, they saw forgiveness. The men understood that the rivalry had caused a lot of pain and suffering, and they were ready to move on. Makina's father even invited them to stay in Namira for the night and celebrate their victory together. The people of Kisumu accepted the invitation, and soon the two villages were celebrating together. Juri and Makina watched the festivities and couldn't help but smile. They knew that this was just the beginning. As the night wore on, the party continued. The people of Kisumu and Namira danced and sang together, and the children played games in the streets. It was a night of celebration, forgiveness, and new beginnings. From that day forward, the rivalry between Kisumu and Namira became a thing of the past. The people of the two villages learned to live together in peace and harmony. And it all started with a simple act of kindness. A brave young girl who saved a drowning man and a wise father who brought his village together. This brings us to the end of our story. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.